Welcome to Warhammer 40k lore in the Bible, where I pull from Warhammer 40k lore to help explain biblical lore. And today we're going to be going over the Flesh Tearers successor chapter of the Blood Angels. But before we get into the video, I am not a lore expert and take the wikis with a grain of salt. I also do regular biblical videos on Mondays. Every Thursday will be this series, and every Saturday will be a Christian Nerd Reacts. And then a Warhammer 40k bolt gun comedy series that I do within the game. And also, if I've earned a like and subscription, please consider doing so. Alright, let's get started. The Flesh Tearers is a loyalist space marine chapter and the smallest second founding successor of the Blood Angels, once numbering only 4 full companies of Astartes, at their nadir before the devastation of Baal. They are true servants of the Emperor of mankind, though their heavy affliction with the genetic flaws of their Primarch Sanguinius and the resulting brutality has led to their investigation on charges of heresy by the Inquisition. They have been cleared of suspicion at present. Like their progenitors, the Flesh Tearers are known for their bloodthirsty nature in battle, bad temper, and are feared for the flaws like the Black Rage and the Red Thirst that they carry within their gene seed. They fight as mad butchers, ripping apart their foes in a vain effort to quiet the fury in their blood. In battle, the whir of their chain weapons is lost beneath guttural snarls of hate, and the pain of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage that the truth of their that is the truth of their tattered souls. The Flesh Tearers' blood rage is infamous across the Imperium, as the savage deeds said to have been performed by their battle brothers, so divorced have the Flesh Tearers become from the rest of mankind, that most Imperial commanders accept the chapter's help only in the direst of circumstances. There is a good reason for this caution. One more than one occasion, the enemy body count has not been enough to sate the Flesh Tearers' bloodlust, and many are the Imperial commanders who have thought themselves saved, only to watch in horror as the warrior angels sent to liberate them succumb to their curse. Lost in the throes of slaughter, the Flesh Tearers often fail to recognize a battle's end, turning their weapons on their allies and even the humans who thought them angelic saviors. They kill until nothing remains but bloodied ground, churned viscera, and the fading thrum of their double hearts. This is their truth, the core of their beings, not the imagined half-divinity believed by the imperial masses, but the red truth of angels of death lost in a dream of suffering and slaughter. The Flesh Tearers' relationship with the other Blood Angel successor chapters is strained at best. The sons of the Cretaceae have fallen far from the artisan angel that spawned them, and they stand as a dark mirror of what all sons of Sanguinius might one day become. It is not a reflection of their scions of Sanguinius can look upon without fearful shame. Worse still is the attention that the Flesh Tearers have drawn from their wider Imperium. Continuing animosity between the Flesh Tearers and the members of the Inquisition have drawn the eye of judgment to the descendants of the angel and the genetic flaw in their blood. Indeed, it was only through the intervention of the Blood Angels' High Chaplain Astaroth at the trial of the Carmine Court, when the Flesh Tearers' chapter master Gabriel Seth stood before Dante and every other chapter master of the successors, that the Flesh Tearers were prevented from being cast out and destroyed. Whatever Astaroth knows or has seen of the future, whatever plans he has for Seth and his army of slaughterers, they are a mystery to even Commander Dante himself. In the wake of the Indomitus Crusade and the devastation of Baal in circa 999 Millennium 41, The Flesh Tearers' dwindling ranks were brought up to full strength by an infusion of hundreds of Primaris Space Marines drawn from sanguineous lineage. Excuse me. As these new Astartes are believed to be more resistant to the flaw in sanguineous gene seed than their brethren, it remains to be seen what change, if any, this will bring to the Flesh Tearers and their penchant for uncontrolled savagery. The Flesh Tearers generally make use of the tactical organization pioneered by the Blood Angels, though they favor close combat over ranged warfare, and most Flesh Tear Space Marines are skilled with melee weapons like chainswords or power swords and bear them into battle. The Flesh Tearers call the Death World of Cretaceous home. It is a violent, tropical world where the dominant forms of life are giant reptiles, very similar to dinosaurs who once existed on Terra during the Cretaceous period, more than 65 million standard years ago. It is a common rite of passage for Flesh Tearers recruits to hunt these massive animals and bring back a trophy of their kill before they are made neophytes of the chapter. Okay. Now the origins. The Flesh Tearers chapter was created in the early 31st millennium after the Primarch of the Ultramarines, Roboute Guilliman, who led the Reformation sweeping the Imperium of Man after the Horus Heresy and the time of rebirth as its first Lord Commander, determined that all the existing Space Marine legions would be broken up into 1,000 Astartes chapters. This was so that no single military commander could ever again wield the dangerous power of the entire Astartes Legion. This event is known as the Second Founding, and the Flesh Tearers was one of the chapters formed from the Blood Angels Legion, even as they continued to grieve for their fallen Primarch, Sanguinius, who had been slain by Horus at the climax of the Siege of Terra. When the Flesh Tearers chapter was brought into being during the Second Founding, Captain Nasir Amit, the commander of the Blood Angels Legion's 5th Company, was chosen to be the first chapter master of all the 9th Legion's captains. Amit's reputation and that of his company was the most bloodthirsty. More than once, the 5th Company had been called to censure by Sanguinius for its zeal in pursuing enemy forces. It was not for nothing that the outspoken officer had earned the nickname the Flesh Tearer when serving in the gladiatorial pits of the World Eaters Legion alongside his oath brother Karn, and rather than deny the epithet, he had made it his own. Amit had a predatory way about him, a sense of aggression barely held in check that was often unleashed in full many times on the field of battle throughout the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Like their commander, the Battle Brothers of the 5th Company were known to bear bolters and flaying knives in battle. After their official formation, the Flesh Tearers immediately left Terra to embark upon a new imperial crusade to eliminate traitor forces still loyal to War Master Horus, as well as continue to purge chaos infestations from imperial worlds during the period known as the Great Scouring. The Flesh Tearers were assigned the battle barge Victus from their former legion, which served as their mobile fortress monastery. The Flesh Tearers' reputation for savagery in battle was soon well known, and so the terrible flaws of the 19th Legion's genetic legacy must have asserted themselves very soon after the death of Blood Angel's Primarch Sanguinius. During this time, the Space Marines remained constantly on crusade, destroying any heretics whose path they crossed. Those they encountered, they defeated. Those they defeated, they utterly annihilated, leaving no stone left unturned, and no living beings to continue any heresy. Some rumors circulated of their brutality, even going so far as to reach the High Lords of Terra. However, their degree of success in achieving compliancy was nearly unparalleled. During this period of strife, as the Imperium recovered from Horus's treachery, results were valued far more than technique. As such, there were no investigations into the savage rumors that accompanied the Flesh Tearers' implacable advance. My goodness. Over time, the Flesh Tearers continued to earn a reputation for savagery. These volatile Astartes reveled in each close assault action and continued to cause unacceptable levels of collateral damage. Some reports indicated that during their mad frenzies, the Flesh Tearers continued their battle actions against Allied forces or even against the innocent civilians whom they were assigned to protect. Their reputation for such savagery has spread through the millennia to the extent that some forces, including several other Space Marine chapters, are no longer willing to engage in Allied missions with the members of the Flesh Tearers. In spite of this fact, there are numerous instances where the Flesh Tearers have worked in battle zones with other chapters. On a number of occasions, these including their chapters that were known to be part of the Blood Angels lineage. The Flesh Tearers fall prey to the curse of the Black Rage far more often than the members of any other chapter descendants from Sanguinius's lineage. This is believed to be due to the mutation in their gene seed, but their combat doctrines and military philosophy may also influence the frequency of the onset of the tragic psychogenetic syndrome. At the time of its formation, the Flesh Tearers chapter. I'm sorry, guys. At the time of its formation, the Flesh Tearers chapters. Okay, the Flesh Tearers chapter discontinued the Blood Angels' practice of imbibing. Never heard that word. Anyways, blood transfusions during a neophyte's initiation using the artifact known as the Red Grail. Some Imperial scholars speculate that this change could have contributed to the horrific mutation of their gene seed that worsened the genetic flaw of their lineage. When Flesh Tearers' battle brothers show the characteristics signs that they are falling prey to the flaw, they are inducted into the chapter's death company and isolated from the healthier brethren. These Space Marines continue their service under the supervision of the High Chaplain of the Death Company, residing in specially adapted strike cruiser Death's Cowl until they are called upon. Alright, we'll bring the birth of wrath and a few other things at the end here. So now we're going to get into the biblical side. Now, the one I'm going to be talking about is the Maccabees. It's not in the Bible, but it was basically a rebellion that happened with Antiochus Epiphanes. But anyways, I will bring up this one because every time I bring up the Blood Angels, I always bring up this first, and then I got another one after that. So Ezekiel 35:6. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Right. And we got this one. For every battle of a warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be the burning of the fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God. Pay attention to that one there, Christians. The Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Now, pay attention to this one as well. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. We're taught differently, aren't we? We're taught the exact opposite of that. Let me read that again. There shall be no end. Okay. Because in the church we're taught that he's going to reign for 1,000 years and then give it up to God. But if you notice, he is God, okay? And there shall be no end. So, anyways, now we're going to get into the Maccabees. That's not the one I wanted. Okay. So the name Maccabees was a title of honor given to Judas, a son of Matthias, in the hero of Jewish wars of the independence in 168 to 164 BCE. Later, the name Maccabees was extended to include his whole family, specifically Matthias, his father, and Judas, his 4 brothers, Simon, Eleazar, and Jonathan. It was extended to John Hyrcanus, Simon's son, who was next in succession. So, here's what it can mean. So they have a few words that they're trying to figure out, what it means. So, a mighty hammer. Some explain the word Maccabee is related to the Greek word meaning strong or fighter. Right here. This is the one I think it is, because it's a lot closer to Maccabee, right, than a Greek word or whatever. And especially when they're rebelling against the Greeks. But anyways, I digress. So some suggest that it comes from the Hebrew word Maccabee, which means to extinguish. The Maccabees endeavored to snuff out the fire of the Greeks, which spread death and desolation throughout the land of Israel. Okay. Let me see if I can find a better. So, the prohibition of Jewish religious practices. This conception of revealed religion and the loyalty to the word of God rather than to human king Antiochus could not appreciate, particularly since he himself delighted in the name of God manifest. So Epiphanes means God manifest. So, in order to extirpate the faith of Israel, therefore, he attacked Israel's religious practices. He thus forbade the observance of the Sabbath and the traditional feast. And by the way, Maccabees was in the 1611 KJV. So there is that. But anyways. So if you want to check it out, you can. It's an actual book. So God, all sacrifices were to come to an end. He forbade the reading of the law of Moses and gave orders to search and burn any copies that would be found. He forbade the practice of circumcision, for it was this that set the Jews off from the people as the one people of God. In place of these practices, Antiochus encouraged the development of cultural clubs called gymnasia, in which people would be gathered to study, to learn, and to enjoy each other's company. After competing in various forms, right here, okay. The Jewish resistance. The home of Matthias, a priest, in the village of Modaim, 17 miles northwest of Jerusalem, quickly became the center of resistance. With him were his 5 sons, John Gadi, Simon Thassi, Judas Maccabeus, Eleazar Avaran, and Jonathan Apphus. Flavius Josephus, the Jewish historian, gives Matthias's great-grandfather the surname Asamoneus. From this title comes the name Hasmonean that was applied to the dynasty that descended from the Maccabees in the following century. Matthias sparked the resistance movement by striking a Jew who was preparing to offer sacrifice to the new gods, and by killing the kings. By the way, Antiochus, he's the one. So the Maccabees called this the abomination of desolation. Antiochus went into the temple, sacrificed a pig. And then his family, he was preparing, and anyways, officers sacrificed to new gods, killing the kings, and then he and his family took to the hills. Many joined them there, especially the Hasidians, a pious and strict group deeply concerned for the law of Moses. These at first refused to fight on the Sabbath, and at once lost thousands of lives. Matthias then insisted that all groups of resistors should fight if required on the holy Sabbath. The guerrilla war that followed was as much a civil war as a war of national resistance. Matthias treated all degrees of collaborators with the same bitterness as he did the Syrian army. By the way, guys, I do want to say, as in everything, these guys weren't the best people, right? So I just want to, and this happens with every revolution and stuff like that, right? Is you do terrible things. So I just want to say that. And after the death of Matthias, Judas Maccabeus, the third son, became the leader of the resistance movement. In his first battle, he seized the sword of Apollonius, governor of Samaria, the general leading the opposing army, but he was also a man of faith in the God of his fathers. He saw himself a charismatic, divinely appointed leader like Gideon of old. Yeah. I don't know, I can't say whether or not, but anyways, he would pause in his guerrilla tactics to assemble his men to watch and pray, and to read the Torah, which is the Old Testament, the Tanakh, whatever. It's the 5 books of Moses. Sorry. The divinely revealed law of Moses. Together, Judas saw his task as that of the successor of Moses and Joshua. Remember how our fathers were saved at the Red Sea, he told his men. So basically, this is where the Hanukkah, right? So they would go. So they went in, they pushed them out, and then they rededicated the temple, right? And that's where Hanukkah comes from. Hanukkah is not a biblical holiday, but it's something that the Jews celebrate of this event. So, and the mainly reason why I brought them up is because their name being extinguisher or mighty hammer. Because we got the flesh tears, it's not exactly the same or whatever, but I figured it'd be cool to put that together or whatever. So, anyways, now let's get to the Warhammer stuff again. So, for over 2 standard centuries after its founding, the Flesh Tears were a mobile crusading chapter. Eventually, however, the chapter chose to establish a permanent fortress monastery upon a brutal death world. Excuse me, my goodness. Located deep in the galactic west. The Flesh Tears named it Cretaceous. My goodness. A name taken from the ancient Baal Sanskrit, or Baal Sanskrit, meaning the birth of wrath. It is the world of gargantuan beasts, magma geysers, and volatile electrical storms. Volcanic eruptions and sharp tectonic shifts threaten to rip apart its continents and swallow those arrogant enough to inhabit its surface. Cretaceous was home to a small population of feral humans whose genes were pure and who had developed a remarkable Neolithic warrior culture that produced strong and able flesh-tear recruits. The chapter had great need of this easily supply of manpower, for as the centuries passed, the flaws in the flesh-tear's gene seed gradually worsened, and few flesh-tearers. Let me read that again. Tear's gene seed gradually worsened, and a few flesh-tear space marines were able to avoid succumbing to the Black Rage after more than 200 standard years in service. By the end of the 41st millennium, the flesh tearers were able to deploy only 4 combat-ready companies, and the degradation of their gene seed seemed to be only increasing, making it likely that unless a remedy could be found, the chapter would ultimately cease to exist. The high incidence of the Black Rage in the chapter has led the Inquisition to question the purity of the flesh tears on multiple occasions, and many other Space Marine chapters refused to fight alongside the Flesh Tears because of their reputation for uncontrolled savagery and genetic corruption, as well. And by the way, there's also some reports and stuff that the Maccabees were pretty ruthless themselves. So, anyways, alongside the Flesh Tears because of their reputation for uncontrolled savagery and genetic corruption, as well as the fear that their bloodlust might be infectious. Since the terrible Caloran massacre of the late 36th millennium, the chapter has essentially remained under the watchful eyes of the Ordo Hereticus. Yeah, we'll read that. Inquisitorial investigation. In 837 millennia 41, Inquisitor Corvin Herold of the Ordo Hereticus boarded Victus, the flagship of the Flesh Tears, seeking an audience with the chapter master Gabriel Seth, officially to question Seth about the recent events at the Shrine World of Lucid Prime, where the Flesh Tears had been involved in a bloody confrontation with the Space Wolves after they had continued to kill civilians they claimed were corrupted by chaos. But the man calling himself an Inquisitor who met with Seth was a decoy, and the real Corvin Herold secretly infiltrated the flagship, seeking proof of the Order Hereticus' long-held suspicions about the Flesh Tears' heretical nature. He believed himself vindicated when he discovered a Flesh Tear who had recently succumbed to the Black Rage, chained to a wall in the bowels of the Void Ship. After this gruesome discovery, Herold was surprised and knocked out by Chaplain Apollos, while his routine of acolytes were slain by the other Flesh Tears. When Herold regained consciousness, he was given a harsh object lesson in morality by Seth, the Flesh Tears librarian. Balthiol created a psychic mind leak between the Inquisitor and the battle brother he had discovered, who had recently been consumed by the Black Rage, and Harold was forced to endure the full measure of the Black Rage. Ooh, yikes. Even a few moments' exposure was almost enough to break his mind. Seth explained to the Inquisitor that this was the true demon of the Flesh Tears wrestled with every day, the demon that, at best, they were sometimes able to harness and use as a weapon against the Emperor's enemies in the form of the Death Company, and, at its worst, stole away their lives and their sanity even as they continued to serve the Imperium. Seth demanded to know by what right was someone like Herold competent to judge the Flesh Tears guilty of heresy in the face of such burden. In the wake of the lesson, Seth allowed the Inquisitor to depart the Victus alone. In the wake of his experience, Herold took Seth's lesson to heart and removed his inquisitorial rosetta. And he decided his service to the Inquisition was at an end, as he clearly could not trust his own judgment of what was heresy and what was not. Alright, guys, we're going to go ahead and end it there. And as you guys can see, I got my glasses in, so it does help out a lot. But anyways, guys, oh yeah, my final nerd form. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day.